What's up, guys? Got another video for you covering some projects that I've been working on, mostly for myself, but I got the last clientele car going out again, so I'll go ahead and update you guys on that. And I've been working on some locomotives and some other cars and long stock that I'll try to bring in and show you, but I got a lot to show you, so I'll try to kind of keep moving. But real quick, I'll show you this car. It's officially done now. Since the last video, I just sealed everything up. I gave it one more hit of oil on the sides. And this car is one I was doing for a client, so he just wanted it kind of really heavily rusted up. So I did some scratches to the sides, and I wasn't quite happy again with the texture of this, so I went back with another sponge and remasked these rib portions, and then I just hit the sides with a little bit of sponge weathering to kind of just blend them back together, and that kind of solved the problem. And then if we look at the other side, it's much heavier, but I wrapped up the wheels and the trucks, and again it's all sealed up now. So I was pretty much ready to go back. Again, just some highlighted features. I really like the way the walkway turned out. I just basically hand weathered the walkway with some oils, and then I did some of that dry brush technique to make it look like the just chipping, overall chipping and weathering on the roof there. So that's just a quick refresh of a car that I showed in the last video. It's officially done, and I'm going to be sending it out in the mail. So hopefully the guy that I'm sending this to gets to see this video and he'll really like it. I already sent him some pictures, but I'm pretty happy with it. Okay, so there's that officially out of the way, and then I'm going to bring this in. This isn't quite done yet. I've just started doing this, but lately I've been working on a couple covered hoppers. And normally I would be working on mostly AEX salt cars this time of year, being fall. But I ended up working on some ACF plastic cars first. And this is the first one I started of the season. This is the first one I started this week, and it's just pretty much the same setup like before. I just started doing the kick-up spray on the ends with the overspray and everything like that, and rusting up the top, and then I added new hatches to it for salt service. So this is going to be an XUP car. I'm going to patch it up. I'm going to put AEX decals on it to make it a more modern prototype, but here you can see just some of the rust dots and stuff that I've done with oil so far. So that's a cool little sneak peek into a car that'll be coming up here in the future. It'll be my first AEX salt car of the season. So I'm going to keep that aside, and again I'll keep some pictures coming up for that pretty soon here. I want to go ahead and switch gears real quick to one tank car that I've been working on. This one is on my bench, and again this was just one I wanted to kind of finish up. I didn't plan on doing such an extensive build with this, but it ended up being one of these cars I bought just to have, kind of quickly weather up and throw into service, but I decided to actually go into a little bit more detail with it. So in this case, this particular car is a chemical service TLX tank car in the two-tone paint for DuPont, and as of 2020-21, this car got repatched. That's what I was trying to say. So it has the DuPont logo there, and this car apparently at some point they just repatched it, and they removed the logo, and you can see where they actually like sanded it away. So I made this little mark with some acrylic paint. I added the reflective safety tape to the sides, and then I just weathered this. Now the most important thing that I did to it, the stock hatch on this car is not this. It's acid style tank car, but these have more of a modern fitting. So what I actually did was I took apart the walkways and the ladders, completely disassembled them, and then scratch built my own. And I also scratch built custom railings for it, and I added basically even added the chains to it. So you have the chain guards, and then the hatch is actually scratch built from styrene. I just took a piece of wooden dowel, wrapped a piece of thin styrene around it, glued it at both ends, and then built around that round dowel rod basically, and I made my own base for it, and then my own top seal. And then I put everything back together and then just gave it a nice light weathering there. This car's not too rusty, but you can see it does have a little bit of chemical spillage. Again, just kind of changed and refreshed a few things, updated some stuff. But overall, out of the box, it was a nice car, but this is a pretty cool, quick weathering project. And again, it's got all my typical features I like to do with tank cars, so it's got all the heavy kick-up spray on the ends. And no one does tank cars like me. I like to get all that kick up and texture and everything, because that's really what you see on modern tank cars. You get all the various layers of texture. So you got brown dot splatter, you got mud splatter, caked up on there, and then all the grime from the reels and all the rust coming up off the rails. So I really like to get that texture, and again, that's why I say no one really does tank cars like this, but I really like to encourage anyone watching this to try to do this kind of level of detail. It really is not that hard. Again, it's just acrylic, a little bit of powder, and I just do my brush splatter technique for that. So just looking at the opposite side here, it's pretty much the same. But a nice overall little project. It was a nice little break to work on this, kind of a refreshing project, something I can work on where I have a little bit of trick having to do some scratch building, but also just in turn light weathering, just some basic techniques there to kind of keep things different and fresh. So really happy with that one. That's the TLX 401 604, a nice tank car there. Let me see here. We're working on a couple hopper cars, and a couple of these from the new run of Atlas ACF plastic pellet cars. I think the 6400 series cars. First one I got is an OCPX, and so with this one it had this paint wash effect where all the white was kind of streaking down the side. I just did that with some oil paint. I added the reflective tape striping. I did custom graffiti, which I actually had a picture of, not from the same car but from a similar car. And I copied that on the sides using acrylic and just hand painted that. It's got all the texture weathering on the top to replicate the tread spray there, kind of chipping away. And then on the opposite side it's pretty straightforward, pretty basic, but you can see it's got a little bit of graffiti work there, quick tag there. You gotta remember, with the majority of these gray bare plastic cars, most of them are pretty clean, so when you model a couple of these, you can have a few rust buckets, some with some graffiti, but generally you want to keep them pretty clean because the vast majority of these cars that you'll see in strings are pretty clean. So that's what you're going to kind of see here with this batch, and then the other batch that I'll show in another video. So again, just minimal weathering, just basically concentrating a lot on the underbody, weathering the wheels and trucks, of course, things like that. But overall, it's pretty simple weathering on that. But you can see, again, you get that nice streaky texture down the side. Something I wanted to focus on with that one. The next one is a factory repaint, WFRX 877584. And I've seen a number of these in service, and you can see that they still are very glossy and fresh. When you actually look at that, you can see the mirror shine. Factory fresh. All I had to do with this one is just heavily gloss coat it. I dull coated the wheels and trucks by taking those off first, weathering them separately, and then reinstalling them. And you can see there's just a little bit of kick up just starting at the bottom of the car. Cleaned off the wheel treads, but in the for the majority of this car, again, it's very clean. It's getting a little dusty up top, but everything is, again, fresh. So it's a nice, fresh, clean, brand new repaint, because there's a lot of these are running around like now that look like this. So I wanted to have at least one of these that was pretty clean, factory fresh. So there's a nice, clean, brand new car. Pretty cool. The fourth one is a little bit more kind of a normal weathering for this style of car. TGCX 88298. Pretty simple to weather these. I just do mostly powder effects, hitting the top mostly, a little bit of grime work around the hatches, kind of built up. Weathered up the walkways a little bit with that powder again, so that they got that nice kind of dull texture effect. And then the easiest thing to do is modeling the scratches down the sides where you can see you've got that texture. I added the safety striping too, but you can see where I darkened the rib panels, the weld seams on the sides of the car. That's just done by basically taking a large liner brush, similar to this but larger, taking a little bit of powder and then just streaking it down the side of the car. It's pretty simple, but you get a nice quick weathering effect like this. You can do it with washes too, but that's another kind of a quicker way. And again, added the KD shelf couplers to this one and weathered the wheels, the trucks, and the underbody, but keeping it pretty simple. And then here's this side. It's not too crazy. And then the fourth one is an RO IX 57554, and this one has some graffiti again, and I actually took some pictures of a similar car that was in a chemical warehouse lot kind of where I live, nearby where I live. I took some pictures of the graffiti on the side and just replicated it for this one. This one's got a few more little rust pits and scratches down the side though, making it a little bit more interesting. But again, it's overall pretty clean. The top is starting to rust a little bit though. That's all done with just dry brushing some oils, working it around the hatches, finishing it off with a little bit of powders, and voila, you get this nice, really cool effect where you can see it and it has texture to it, right? It actually looks, you know, prototypical. It's flat and rusty, just like the real things are. So you can see these cars are not that complicated, yet there's a lot of detail you can go into when modeling these kind of plain, more basic looking cars. So you can really go into a lot more detail. So that's these four. Another quick look at the opposite side. Oh yeah, on this side I did a little bit of a kind of an area where they just sprayed over some graffiti and patched it over. That's pretty cool. That's something you see where they just take some cheap spray paint and try to kind of brush out some graffiti. So I just modeled that with a little bit of acrylic and just basically wet washed it on the side and built it up in about 2 layers to kind of get that rough looking patch effect. Same with this little spot here, and then the area where they resprayed the data. So that's another cool little effect, is modeling some patchwork, and you can go as complex or as simple as you want with this kind of stuff. You know, little effects like that really do add a lot of variety and kind of realism to your model. So anyways, that's the 4 Atlas cars I got done, and the others I have are this style, the rarer, harder to get Walther's car, but I'll save these for another video to kind of keep things moving. We'll show some more of these once I get them all done. But that's kind of a sneak peek of what I've been doing, is some of these. I got a bunch from a friend recently, so I've been selling off a couple, so this one's almost done. I just got to go back and start doing some powder work, but I just finished oils on this. But you guys can expect more cars like this in the next video as well. But this will just kind of give you a sneak peek of the other style of ACF, or not ACF, but I believe NSC style plastic cars that will be coming in the next video. But again, this is really what I've been focusing on mostly this fall, is getting a large fleet of these done. I think I got 12 done so far. But coming up next, I'll be switching back over to the salt cars so I can get a couple more salt hoppers done up. So that's the hoppers for this video taken care of. So I got a couple locomotives that I've been working on. I'm not going to give you too much of a sneak peek, but the one I wanted to show you today was the first of a few CSX locomotives I wanted to do. Oopsie. And it is 8863. This is one I wanted to do for quite some time. For all you CSX modelers, here you go. So this is one of the ex-Conrail CSX repaints that Athearn offered a couple years back, I think in 2009. This one started as 8815, and I thought I could just renumber it, throw some details on it, weather it, and just model in 8863, because 8863 was the last YN2 ex-Conrail running. Unfortunately, it's been put in storage, and it's probably going to get scrapped because it didn't pass all of its tier requirements. But anyways, I wanted to model this locomotive, so I used the Athearn locomotive, stripped off the number, and I found real quickly that the colors were quite wrong, in particular the blue. So I ended up kind of pondering this, and I ended up having to repaint all the blue on this locomotive, including the logos. For the logos, I hand painted them with some blue acrylic, but for the sides, the band, the cab, and on the nose, I repainted that with some Tamiya blue, similar to what I've been using on my HLCX units. So I ended up repainting those, and I also had to do some battery box work because they use this mailbox slot style battery box. So I added that on both sides. I added some other details to the cab. I made my own PTC antennas. As you can see there, it's got this CSX style GPS dome, the Sinclair antenna, whip antenna, the EOT antenna, renumbered number boards, and then some really nice heavy weathering on the nose where the paint's chipping away. You can see the primer is exposed on the nose there, and just a lot of rust is starting to take over now too, because this thing is very dirty. You can see the deck is very well rusted up. Handrails are nice and dirty. On the front here, I added the snowplow, the ditch lights, new couplers, MU cables, the air hose as well. And you can see it's nicely weathered up. And then again on the side, you can see where I renumbered it, added the data, and there's a lot of good rust on the side still because again it's very beat up. I modified the trucks by adding the spinning Timken bearings on the trucks because that's something CSX likes to do. They like to remove the bearing covers, which are these, and then they just leave the bearing exposed. So those are Details West bearings drilled into the side frame, glued in place, and then I added sanding lines as well. So there's a lot of rust and stuff. Added tons of warning labels and things like that down to the side. All the appropriate fuel tank details, all the air filters, warning labels, tons of work done to the side hood. I added the K9 APU rotary beacon there with the little platform and everything, all scratch built. Horn is correctly relocated to the blister there. I added lift rings, and here on the roof you can see how I modeled all the paint chipping, all the fading, the replacement hatch there. Look at all that texture. That's something I really like to focus on when I do these locomotives. You can see there's a lot of oil rendering work, there's a lot of chipping effects, similar to the hairspray effect, just all the way down the top. Tons of rust on the fans, darken the grills. Again, there's the rear truck. I added the waste retention tank and all the rear details on the back pilot as well, which is pretty cool. And then all the work done to the rear hood. And as we get to the opposite side, you can see there's that truck there with all the modified bearing, added details. And here you can see all of the work done to the side as well, with all the labels. Definitely the hardest part of this build for sure was adding the correct blue and then getting the logos corrected. And even still, they're not really correct. This should be a little bit higher up on the frame, but unfortunately it'd just be too hard to correct that without having to completely redecal it. But I got it pretty close, and I'm pretty satisfied with it, and I'm very happy to have a model of this thing finally, because this is one I actually got to see. The other cool thing I did, I added Archer decals because they add these little vents to the battery box there, so I added that to my model to get that appropriate. And I also scratch built the little cabinet there. Again, there's the new number and all the details on the cab, and a quick look at those scratch built PTC I guess skate style cab antennas. Those are pretty cool. And a look at the nose with all the nice details. So yeah, that's what I'm really happy with, is 8863. I'm so glad to finally have a model of that cool looking locomotive. I love these X-Conrail units. Of course, 8888 was one of them. 8863 is my second favorite. So I finally have a model of it, and I'm very happy with it. The only thing I got to do to it is add DCC, and she'll be ready to go as a kind of run through CSX power. Since I'm still going to model Union Pacific, but I still want to have some CSX locomotives I can run through. Now, another quick look at a sneak here is this CSX SD40. I'm actually custom painting. I'm in the middle of doing, so you guys can stay tuned for this. This will have tons of cool weather that we'll be talking about, going in a little bit more detail with, but there's a little sneak peek of what's to come in the next video, so you guys can stay tuned for that. Pretty cool, huh? Because no one really does YN2 SD40's, unfortunately, but they're so common. Well, they were so common. They're rare now, but they're so cool. So I'll wrap up this video by showing you guys kind of what's coming next. I do, like I said, have a couple more of these hoppers coming. Out here is my personal collection, and I got a lot of stuff to go over, but I have a couple more of these hoppers I'm going to be showing. I got some Autorex coming up that I got to show you guys. I got all of these I got to review. And then these are some cars that I'm going to be putting up, well, not this one, but this one, and these two. And this guy will be going up on eBay pretty soon. I'll be listing these and selling them off. And then these will also be coming up. So these are the new Athearn rail boxes, the new ghost letter scheme, and then the patch scheme. And then I just recently picked up 3 of these really cool North American railcar 3-bay hoppers. I got a Procore hopper that I'm going to be working on here pretty soon. Got a couple of these Walthers tank cars, because I'm going to be detailing these up. They're not as nice as the Athearn cars, but once you detail them up, they do look really nice. And I got a couple of these. I also have 2 of the Procore sulfur cars I'll be converting for sulfur service again. And then there's the other Campotex 3-bay covered hopper from North American Railcar. And then I have an SD40's I'll be painting. And I just have, again, just tons and tons of stuff. All these boxes are cars again. You can see I got tons of different stuff I got to work on. So I'm not going to be running out of projects anytime soon, I guess you can tell. So you guys can keep an eye out again, of course, for all my upcoming videos. Thank you for watching this one, and I will see you in the next one. Take it easy, guys.